So, hello and welcome everyone. Hi, Marco, joining us on YouTube. As always, we'll give it a few minutes for people to trickle in before we really get started. And in the meantime, please share in the comments or the chat section where you're joining from. It's always nice to hear where in the world people are located. For those that haven't joined me before, here on these Thursday live streams, I am based in Sweden. There's a bit of thunder outside, so we'll see if that makes its way into the meditation today. But yeah, we have people joining on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, so welcome to everyone. In addition to letting me know where you're joining us from, I would love to offer a prompt and get your reflections based on the topic of this meditation. So this practice is about retreating within. And so I would love to know what the word retreat means to you. What does it mean to retreat? So feel free to share your thoughts on that in the comments section. And in the meantime, we have Kim from Massachusetts. Rochelle says good morning, joining from Salt Lake City. Pierre, Mark from Montreal, Canada. Hello. Elizabeth from Arkansas. Brandy in Iowa. Donna in Diamond. I'm sorry, I'm from Canada. I'm blanking on what state that might be. Kobe in Wyoming. Oh, my screen just jumped there. Marco is in Rome on YouTube. Kasha is in Indianapolis. Muhammad is from India. Nancy, Boston. Paula, Philadelphia. Nancy said good morning from San Diego. Simi in India. Antoinette joining from LinkedIn in London. Gina is in Houston, Texas. Amy is Dallas, Texas. Charles says, I'm a bodywork massage therapist, originally from Puerto Rico. John is joining from Holland. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. Gina is a property manager in Houston, Texas. Rosa is in Georgia. And then in response to the question, and if you're just joining in now, please do let me know what the word retreat means to you. That's what the energy we'll be working with today. Kobe says space. Gina says retreat equals peace. Charles says self-love. Caroline says to look into. Brandy, take a step back. Nancy, centering my thoughts. Rosa says retreat is to fall back and regroup. Kim, retreat to me is to take a step back and reflect. Sherry says reflection. Charles, loving yourself. And welcome to everybody else who shared where you're joining from in the comments. It's nice to see all of you here. Sherry says pause. Kobe says currently writing a journal on meditation. This is perfect timing. Marco says retreat within, ability to listen to the inner conversation and the dialogue between the different parts of my body. Lucy says your happy place. Antoinette, a safe space to get away with like-minded souls. Ashley, incubate in self-reflection. Donna, a step back to reflect in soul connection. So thank you all for sharing that. Amy, retreat, learn, remind, and recenter. So you can keep sharing your reflections, but mirrored in what so many of you said, retreat for me is, rather than, it's to shift my energy from being outward focused and moving forward and to just pause and come back into myself. So it's almost to turn around and tune within. So that is the intention for today's practice. So often throughout our lives and most of our days, we are just busy doing, putting ourselves out there, interacting out there, relating to ourselves the way that we connect with what is outside of us. Um, Understanding ourselves based on our roles, based on what we are doing, based on our jobs, based on outward action, ultimately. Um, and so the intention for this practice is to take that pause, to give ourselves permission and space to turn around and to tune in. So we're not looking for anything in this practice per se. We're not trying to have a certain type of experience. Retreating within, tuning within will look and feel different for each one of us, from moment to moment, day to day. So as we enter this practice, I just invite you to honor and care for whatever your experience is today, and to do what you need to do to take care of yourself. If anything becomes too much, you're welcome to just open your eyes and gaze towards the floor. But really, I just invite you to bring forth this energy of self-compassion and curiosity and care as we dive into it. So, that's all I'll say for now, before we get into the practice. But why don't we just get started? So for this practice, you can either be seated in a comfortable position, or you could be lying down. But in either case, I invite you to let your spine be long, your shoulders relaxed, and your heart open. And just take a few moments, a few breaths, just to find that comfortable posture for yourself. And your eyes might already be closed, but if they're still open, we can begin this practice of retreating inwards by gently closing the eyes. Limiting our connection to the external world as we just tune in. And as you settle in, just take a moment to connect, to observe that connection you have with the earth beneath you, through whatever surface is holding you right now. So feeling those points of contact between your body and the surface below you. And just allowing this felt connection to remind you that you are here now. You are right here in this present moment. And then shift your attention towards your breath. And if it feels supportive for you, you might take 1 or 2 cleansing breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And then breathing naturally. Just feeling that natural and effortless rhythm of the breath into and out of your body. And before we move further, let's just take a moment to set an intention to pause from our outward activity and to tune in. Setting an intention to permit yourself to just be with yourself. Permitting yourself to take pause from doing and achieving, to allow space for simply being. And just notice what it feels like to take this time to tune inwards. Noticing what it feels like to breathe, to sit or to lie down. Noticing if there's any emotions present within you. Without latching on to anything and without avoiding anything. So just seeing if you can be an outside observer of your experience of this moment. Taking pause to retreat can sometimes bring a sense of peace or release, but it can also bring discomfort. And so, whatever your experience of this moment might be, whether pleasant or unpleasant or neutral. Holding your awareness of this experience with care and curiosity and compassion. Letting yourself be here exactly as you are. And holding as you are with non judgment and kindness. So, remembering that we're not here looking for a particular experience. We are just tending to ourselves as we are. Letting this moment be enough. Letting ourselves be enough. And as you rest here, tuning into your experience, retreating within, you might also gently scan your body from the crown of your head slowly down to your toes. Becoming curious if there's any habitual, unconscious tension that might like to be released. You maybe softening the forehead and the muscles around the eyes. Softening your jaw, your shoulders, your arms, your hands, the muscles in your belly, your thighs, all the way down to your feet. Just gently softening any physical tension that helps you to be more open to this present moment experience. Just letting yourself be. Just allowing yourself to simply breathe. Giving yourself permission to pause from planning, from organizing, from achieving. Just allowing yourself the space and time to be with your inward experience. Seeing if you can savor this breath and this breath. And this breath. And then connecting with your heart, either by drawing your attention there or with the support of a hand on the heart space. And thanking yourself for giving yourself the time and space to simply be, to turn away from the external and towards the internal. Honoring whatever your experience of this practice might have been today. However peaceful or scattered or uncomfortable. Honoring yourself for taking the time to practice. And maybe take one or two more clearing breaths. Feeling your continued connection to the surface beneath you. And when you feel grounded back into the body and into your physical space, and slowly opening your eyes when you are ready. So thank you, everyone who's here and who practiced. Just take your time to slowly come back. And I would love to hear your experience of how that meditation was for you today. So you can share in the comments. There's a couple more reflections on what retreat is from before we began. Charles said, listening to God. Dr. Prabha said, staying within the boundary of self. Melanie said, I'm trying, I can't get into it. Melanie, if you're still here, I would love if you wanted to share more about your experience, what was happening in the mind, what the resistance sounded like, if you're here and you're willing to share. Generally speaking, though, each time we sit down to practice, we show up completely differently. We could have a whole different range of things going on in our lives that make it harder for us to tune in, or easier for us to tune in. The style of practice might be new or unusual or not our preference. The timing, the language used, the teacher, there's so many different factors that can play into why some days are more difficult than others. Some practices are more challenging than others. But yeah, if you're here and you'd like to share more, I would love to hear from you. Lesbia said, thanks. Kim said, thank you. Antoinette said, restful, like asleep. Beautiful. Yeah, I think we can get that sense of deep rest just from stopping, from pausing. It's interesting now with, we all have personal devices and social media and news at our fingertips. That even when we are not doing anything actively, even if we're just sitting on the couch, chances are we are scrolling, we are consuming something, we are engaging with the outward external world. And so this kind of practice is a way to start to shift that, to give ourselves, all meditation gives ourselves a way of relating to this moment without having to grasp or seek or scroll or scan. And that can bring a deep, deep sense of rest and ease and release. So I'm happy to hear that. Kelly said, loved it, thank you. Donna said, refreshing, thank you. Muhammad, excellent. John said, feels like a good homecoming in myself, timeless presence, beautiful. Yeah, it's another part of retreating, is really coming home to ourselves. So often we are caught up in things of the external world. We're not really fully aware of how we're feeling, how our breath is moving, how our body is uh, feeling, the thoughts that are present. So often we just act on autopilot and we're not fully awake and fully aware of our experience. And so a practice like this can allow us to strengthen our capacity to be awake and aware and present to what is happening, and to feel at home within ourselves. Home is a place that we know, right? It's a place of belonging. And so often when we're scattered and caught up in what's going on in the outside world, we're not really home. We're outside of the home. We're engaging in things beyond ourselves. Um, and of course, there's many times and places for that, to be doing, to be achieving, to be in dialogue with others. But where is the balance? What is the balance like for us? How often are we out there doing outside of our inner home, and how often do we take time to be in our home that is ourselves? So thank you for sharing that, John. Charles said, thank you. I was able to let go and reset, to observe my emotions and thoughts. Wonderful. Yeah, again, that comment just brings me back to this notion of being on autopilot. So often our thoughts and our emotions, in general, they just happen. But can we be aware of them while we're happening? Even if we are taken away, swept up by seemingly little thoughts, can we be aware of that thought's presence? Can we be aware of the subtlety of our emotions? Sometimes our emotions are strong, so often they're quite subtle, but they're still worthy of our attention and our care and our patience. Antoinette said, gratitude to you for giving us all the opportunity to dive deep within and swim in the waves of consciousness. Blessings. Thank you so much, Antoinette. I'm so glad you joined. Swim in the waves of our consciousness. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, again, not to harp on about, awareness of our thoughts, but, often when we think about retreating, we associate it with, or we expect complete stillness, silence, spaciousness, complete ease. And while that may be our experience, or while we may tune into that type of experience, there are also these waves. We might find that we've lost our awareness of what's happening, and we've been thinking about something that was said at the workplace at lunch 3 days ago, and we've been there in the story of that for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it might be. And these are some of the waves. We might notice waves of uncomfortable sensations, waves of emotion, waves of tension or tightness, and then a wave of letting go. But can we practice being with all of it without judgment? So often we think that we should be having a certain kind of experience, or that our retreat is not good enough, so to speak, or it's not right if we're not having a certain kind of experience, or we're not feeling a certain way. But I do believe that whatever comes up for us in our practice is what needed to come up. And I think even when our practice is difficult, even when the retreat doesn't feel like that sense of peace and ease, I guess the real opportunity is whether or not we can tend to that with self-compassion. Can we allow that? Can we let that be okay? Can we nurture ourselves through whatever we are experiencing? And so this kind of practice and what we're talking about here is about mindfulness, but it's also about self-compassion. And I think mindfulness and self-compassion really go hand in hand. They're really intertwined, because mindfulness is really about this non-judgmental awareness. And this non-judgmental piece is where we find our capacity to tend with care to whatever we're experiencing. So it's good practice, both to be aware and to be compassionate with ourselves. Sorry, my dog is stirring after that meditation. John said, I would love to know if you are giving more and longer retreats, Gillian. It's a great question. So I work with Sean through Mindfulness Exercises, and actually in 2 weekends from it's 1 weekend from this weekend. So it'll be July 9th and 10th. We are having an online, it's a weekend retreat, so it's a 2-day retreat. I will share the link for it here. So I will be hosting a couple of sessions. Sorry, let me just go to LinkedIn directly and post the link there. But you can also find it through the Mindfulness Exercises homepage. But this will be a meditation on helping you to create and sustain a daily meditation practice, and we'll explore a variety of different practices. So I've just posted it in LinkedIn, should show up in a second at the top. But through Mindfulness Exercises, we are hoping to do a retreat once a month or so. I will be going on maternity leave in the middle of August, so the next 2 retreats I'll be on with Sean and a colleague, Sarah May. I'm not sure, has anyone here been with Sarah May for some of her meditations? She leads these live mindfulness meditations on Mondays at 8 a.m. 8 a.m. Pacific, that is. So yes, John, to answer your question, those would be the longer retreats that I'm a part of. I'm not hosting them by myself. Sean Fargo is hosting them, who's the founder of Mindfulness Exercises. And Sarah May and I will be supporting and leading some of the sessions ourselves. So yeah, I would love to have anybody there who's interested in joining, or if you have any questions, please let me know as well about how those retreats are structured and ran. Antoinette said bliss is also interesting. Yeah, I would love to hear more if you want to share any of your curiosity around bliss. Antoinette then said, thanks, more blessings. But yeah, feel free. We have some more time if there's more questions or reflections that you want to share. But Mohammed just asked, how can we control our chain of thoughts because we get distracted by them most of the times? How to concentrate on oneness? So I'll just focus on the first part to begin. How can we control our chain of thoughts? Because we get distracted by them most of the times. Yeah, our thoughts are very distracting. You know, we can settle into a meditation practice and we have the utmost, strongest, sincerest intention to just be present. But it is natural to think, you know, for all of us humans, the mind wanders. On some days more, some days less. Sometimes it's easier to stay focused on whatever we are intending to notice or pay attention to. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's difficult, and often it's somewhere in between. But I guess one thing I would say in response to your question is that for me, it's not so much about controlling our thoughts, but it's about strengthening my capacity to notice when I've become lost in thoughts, and to celebrate, to really honor and cherish and celebrate those moments of recognizing when we've become distracted. You know, so often if we have this sincere intention to meditate, and we hope it will be a certain way, we hope that we can stay focused and present, Oftentimes, when we notice that the mind has wandered, let's say it's been 5 minutes thinking about what we're going to have for dinner tonight, or an argument we got in with somebody last week. Um, when we have that moment of recognizing, wow, my mind has taken me on this journey into this story, and I have become disembodied from my present experience. So often we are quick to condemn ourselves, to judge ourselves, um, to think we've gotten it wrong. And I think in those moments, that is an opportunity to recognize that we have noticed, to celebrate those little moments of awareness of what has just happened. Because I think this practice is really, again, about non-judgment, and that means non-judgment of whatever arises, um, non-judgment of our distractions, um, and tending to those with self-compassion. And I also think, on that note, it's also helpful to start with shorter practices. Um, you know, to give ourselves to set ourselves a meditation time that is both challenging, but also attainable for us. So we're not pushing so hard. We're allowing our practice to generally expand and grow and strengthen. And then the second part of your question, how to concentrate on oneness. I think for me, anyways, the recognition of oneness often comes up spontaneously during practice, but certain practices can bring it up and can focus on it. I've led a few meditations here focused on being aware of our interconnectedness and of the oneness that is. So for me, that would be more how to strengthen awareness of oneness. But there's also many practices to strengthen concentration, generally speaking. There is one meditation, and let me see if I can find it here. On Mindfulness Exercises, there's a script of this practice, and there's also a guided video to go along with it on YouTube. But it's called The Perfect 10 Breaths. And I find this is a really great practice to strengthen concentration, and also one that I find very grounding if my mind is really scattered. Excuse me. And so the idea with this is that you're focusing on the breath and you're counting the breaths as you take them from 1 to 10, and then going back to the start. And if you get to 4, the mind wanders. Once you recognize the mind has wandered, come back to 1 and just start again, knowing that it's not a competition with anyone, including not a competition with ourselves. But it's just a practice of enhancing our awareness of when the mind drifts off and then coming back to that anchor. And the breath in and of itself can be an anchor, something that we can focus on. But I particularly like this counting 1 to 10 of the breaths. I think it's a great place to start, and can help to strengthen that muscle of paying attention. So I hope that helps, Mohammed. Janine said, thank you, feeling grateful. And Baba Tunde said, gratitude is a huge part of mindful living. Absolutely. Yeah, there's so many of these meditation types that we lead here. Compassion, mindfulness, gratitude, and they all weave in so well together. Mindfulness enhances our awareness of what is. And so often we can be caught up in what's not going well, what doesn't feel right, what we don't like per se. But as we strengthen this muscle of mindfulness so often, at least from my own experience, I can say it's much easier to attune to what I can be appreciative of. Everything from the breath in this very moment, being present with all of you on this call right now, the summer warmth, the walls and the roof around me, the chair that I'm sitting on, the view, the trees outside my window, and on and on and on and on. And so gratitude can be strengthened through mindfulness, but we can also focus on gratitude-specific practices. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. In fact, maybe next week or one of the coming weeks, we'll do a practice to strengthen gratitude. Yeah, if there's any final questions or comments or reflections, please share them in the chat. And whether you're new here or you're a regular to these Thursday sessions, I appreciate all of you so much for joining. I definitely recognize some familiar names. There's a lot of people joining from LinkedIn and a few on Facebook and YouTube. But it's really a pleasure to lead these sessions with you, to share this space and this practice. So yeah, if you want to join me, I'll be here again next week. So next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. for me here in Sweden. And yeah, if you'd like to connect beyond these sessions, you can also connect with us in our mindfulness community. I'll just share the links there as well. So you can easily find me there. And it's just an online forum if you want to chat and talk about practice, any mindful insights. Babatunde says, how would you recommend handling the wandering mind? Yeah, I'm not sure if you were here, if you just jumped in. I touched on this just a few moments ago in response to Mohammed's question about controlling our chain of thoughts when we get distracted. But I can say again that, first of all, the wandering mind, I mean, who hasn't experienced that in practice? It is so common, it is so natural. And yet through this practice, we strengthen the muscle of being able to recognize when the mind has wandered, and being able to come back to whatever it is that we are doing in the practice. So sometimes it's holding open awareness, sometimes it's focused awareness. Beyond mindfulness practice, it could be repeating an affirmation or a mantra, visualization. But either way, I think first is, becoming curious about the attitude or the perspective we have towards the wandering mind. What do we think of it? Do we think it's a problem? Does it frustrate us? Do we think it's not what it should be? Antoinette said monkey mind. Absolutely. It's jumping all over the place. And so really recognizing those moments, those tiny moments of awareness when we recognize that the mind has wandered, whether it's been wandering for 10 seconds or for 10 minutes or longer. Can we really celebrate that moment of, oh, yeah, okay, I'm coming back now, and savor that moment of coming back and really sense into the beauty of that moment of awareness. Um, so I guess mm, my main answer to your question, how to handle the wandering mind, is, um, with what attitude, with what energy do we tend to it? Um, Being curious about it, noting where it's gone, without analyzing it. It's a time and a place for deeper inquiry and exploring, why we get caught up with what we get caught up. But in terms of our practice, just seeing if we can curiously note that it has happened, um, and then to come back. And I think, again, I don't know if you saw Babatunde. I shared a script. Did I share that one to LinkedIn? Yes, I think I did. Um, but exploring practices where we can strengthen our capacity to focus. So I shared a script and a guided practice that's called Perfect 10 Breaths. And the practice is really about settling in, breathing, and counting our breaths from 1, 2, all the way up to 10. And if we get distracted, just noting the distraction and then coming back to 1 and going back up to 10. And when we've arrived at 10, if we've arrived at 10, then coming back to 1 and starting again. And we can set a timer for this, maybe doing this for 10 minutes or so. But just when the mind wanders, knowing that we're not trying to get anywhere. We're just exploring, we're strengthening. We're building a muscle the way we build a muscle in any other type of exercise. So I hope that helps. I might have said more to that point earlier, but you can watch the recording of this if you like. Just maybe 10 minutes before you joined in. But thank you so much for the question. John just purchased a package with you for over 200 meditations. Thank you. That's wonderful, John. I hope you enjoy them. Michael says, thank you, be well. And yeah, Antoinette said, monkey mind. We are all very familiar with it. But yeah, I will be here next week, 9 a.m. Pacific. Sarah May will be here on Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific. So yeah, thank you all so much for practicing. Hope my internet hasn't cut out. Oh, it was a little jumpy there. But thank you so much for practicing. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your comments, your questions, your reflections. And I look forward to connecting with you in some way at some point in the future. So take care.